guys, it's Emily and Milo, and we're here to bring you another recent reads video. As always, I got 3 books to tell you about, so let's just get right into it. The first book that I finished recently was Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk by Kathleen Rooney. And this is a book that, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh, that's an Emily book. It features a elderly protagonist, Lillian Boxfish, who is 85 years old, and she is taking a walk around New York City on New Year's Eve, 1984. And she is detailing the story of her life. So it's one of those novels where you get to see a lot of history through the form of one person's individual life. And so we start in the 1920s and we go all the way up to 1984. And so it's just a really cool book. Lillian Boxfish is a fictional person, but Kathleen Rooney does mention that she's based on a real person in the back of the book. The real person is an ad woman named Margaret Fishback. And so Lillian Boxfish comes to New York in the mid-1920s to be a copywriter for R.H. Macy's. Of course, today it's Macy's department store. And so she is telling us about her life and telling us about, her relationships and then her marriage and divorce and her relationship with her children and her child. And it's just a really fascinating story. And Lillian has some mental health problems in the book, and so she talks about that. And it's interesting to see how mental health problems were treated during the 1950s versus like today. And we just see a really interesting woman's life, and also her modern day. The walking part is very interesting as well because she encounters some people from her past. She also encounters, newer people strangers that she's never met before. And so we see sort of the contrast between the past and the present time. So it's just a really fascinating book. I would highly recommend it if you have any interest in historical fiction. It's just a very interesting kind of story, even though, again, the plot is very simple. Literally, she's walking around New York, it's New Year's Eve, she's telling us about her life. That's it. It's not very complicated in terms of like action, but it's just a really wonderful story, and I would highly recommend it. And if you're a Mad Men fan, I guarantee you're going to think about Peggy Olson when you're reading this book, because Lillian gives like major Peggy Olson vibes. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I would read it again. Definitely recommend it. I then finished the 3rd book in the Eleanor of Aquitaine series trilogy by Elizabeth Chadwick, and that was The Autumn Throne. And this follows Eleanor in the last third of her life. At the beginning of the book, she's imprisoned in the Sarum Palace because at the end of the last book, she supported her son Henry in his attempt to overthrow his father in a coup. And so her husband, also Henry, imprisons her. And so the first half of the book, she's in prison, although she is allowed to go travel and see her children for Christmas on occasion. And she also is brought to different political events based on Henry's need for her to be there. So we do see some traveling, but mostly she's in prison. And then in the second half of the book, Henry dies, and so she is freed, and by her son Richard, who is now the king. And then Richard passes away, and her son John becomes king, and John is the Magna Carta King John, the one that was such a terrible king that they made him sign the Magna Carta. But anyway, that is after the focus of this book. So we just see Eleanor's life as she gains, she becomes older. She also travels to Spain to see her daughter and to get her granddaughter and bring her back to France for her granddaughter's marriage. So it's just a really good, historical fiction novel. Again, it's not like super plot driven. It's just Eleanor's life story in fictional form. I have really enjoyed this entire series. I would definitely recommend it if you're interested in historical fiction, or if you have any interest in Eleanor of Aquitaine. I'm planning to sometime read my biography of Eleanor Aquitaine that was written by Alison Weir sometime in the early 2020. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I would recommend this if you have any interest in the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine. I then read a spookier book, a Halloweeny book, and that was You Will Know Me by Megan Abbott. And this is a thriller about the Belfour family. And the Belfours consist of Kate, her husband Eric, her daughter Devin, and her son Drew. And Devin is an elite gymnast, and she is attempting to make it to the Olympics. And right now she's trying to get on the elite team, which only 60 girls in the country can get onto. And so it's about their life as a gymnastics family. All of their time is dedicated towards taking Devin to practice, and they spend all their money on this, and they have taken out a second mortgage. And so, this is very important to them that Devin make it to the elite team. So they're working on this, but when this is happening, a local boy who also is associated with the gymnastics team, Ryan, is struck in a hit and run. And at first they just think it's a hit and run, but then there's sort of an implication that it might have been a deliberate hit and run, and so it sort of messes up the gym because Ryan's girlfriend is their coach's niece, and so the coach is out of commission while he's dealing with this family drama, but they're coming up on the elite qualifiers, so it's very important to the girls that they practice because they have to stay in shape before this big competition. So then there's all this drama with the gym parents, and then of course they're trying to figure out the murder. So it's very dramatic. I won't tell you anything about what happens because I feel like that would be a spoiler no matter what I said, but I was actually not that thrilled by this. I mean, I don't read a ton of thrillers because they're not really my thing. I just am not. I'm more of a mystery person. Thrillers are just, I don't read them. So I read this because I'd gotten it from a little free library and I wanted to get it read so I could put it in the little free library again. But I just, the ending wasn't, I was never like, oh my gosh, the ending wasn't that scary. I guess some of the parts of the ending, which I don't normally do, I don't know, this wasn't my kind of thriller, I guess, or my kind of book, because even at the end, it doesn't end like a normal thriller where you find out who done it, and then you see the consequences. You found out who did it, but then there was this long, denouement afterwards where they were, wrapping things up, and you saw the elite competition, and you saw all this other stuff. But it was it took a long time for the book to wrap up, and even the process of learning who did it, you got parts here and there. And again, like I said, I figured out some of the stuff that happened, and I don't know, this was okay, but I wouldn't really recommend it per se unless you have a particular interest in gymnastics. And I do. I love gymnastics. I took gymnastics in elementary school and into middle school, and I love watching the Olympics. So it was really interesting to see the life of an elite gymnast, sort of the day-to-day life. But on the whole, I wasn't super impressed with the mystery in this, or the whodunit aspect. So it was okay, but not amazing. So that's all I've read recently. I hope everybody's reading some great books and you're having a good spookathon. I'm getting ready to film my nonfiction November TBR, which I'm really excited about. And I hope everybody's having a great day and you're reading some great books. And I'll talk to you again soon. And Milo says bye as well. Bye!